person to ask this. As far as the national average is concerned, how do they take into account, I assume they have to take into account that call time gap, or no?
So if you're referring to the NFPA 1710, they're referring from the time that the call is received. So they give the fire departments basically for a fire call 80 seconds from the time that you receive the call to start clearing the fire station. And the reason they give them 80 seconds is to get their gear on, get in the truck, and start heading out. For a medical call, they give them 60 seconds because there's usually no gear that needs to be put on, placed in the vehicle, and start heading towards the call. So the way that they track that 5 minutes and 5 minutes and 20 seconds is that way, but not necessarily the tracking of the 911 call.
But that still doesn't give the gap for when the call is made, if that call's answered for...
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's both systems that are functioning there are under pressure. If you speak to the sheriff, she'll tell you that she's short-staffed, and that's leading to longer durations of time as they collect the information. And it's because we don't have enough units to respond within the reference NFPA standard. It sums up to a total of over 9 minutes within the UDB to life-threatening calls.
That's interesting because the sheriff mentioned positions that were necessary, that were not, that there were civilian positions. I would assume that perhaps those 911 dispatch caller folks are they're civilian, they're non-police.
Correct. They're certified dispatchers through our process. They're not firefighters that answer or that dispatch the calls. That is correct.
So my last question, now that we've clarified the response time and we're very close to the national average, to Mr. McAllister, we had a conversation about units, specifically monies that can come from the fire district that can fund some of these units. I'd like to hear, one, what those plans were as far as what they could fund. And then if you can give me your opinion, but I certainly want to hear from the fire chief, how that would help us to perhaps not only get to the national standard, but surpass the national standard.
The transfer of air rescue from a countywide funding source into the district that provides services to a little over 60% of the population of Dade County hamstrings our ability to open new units. If you look at the proposed 25-26 budget, there are no new units going into service. However, according to the documents that were generated for CFAI and ISO and the accrediting bodies that were previously referenced, there's a document dated October 30th, 2024 that speaks to the need for 36 units to chase that response time down from a total response time of over 9 minutes within the UDB down to that gold standard of 5 minutes. And we were closer, by the way, in 2004. If you look at the CAFR for the county in 2004, the reported time back then was 6.75 minutes. 20 years later, in the same document produced by the county, we're at 9.15 minutes.
And Chief, if those units were available, would the response time be better?
It's very difficult to say, and I'll say this, I said it earlier in regards to geographical locations. So let me just use Miccosukee as the perfect example. You opened up with that. So the closest fire station I have to the reservation is roughly 152 and 8th Street. I could put 30 fire trucks there. Are the response times going to get reduced if I respond to Miccosukee? And the answer is no. It's all about geographical locations.
Being closer.
Correct. So we pre-identified, through our team, 13 geographical locations that we need to land acquisition. We've moved in that direction. We were able to allocate 3. Now, it's very difficult. Land acquisition, as everyone probably knows, the cost of land is expensive or it's overpriced, so we continue to search. So, one of the things that Mr. McAllister also alluded to in regards to, the over 36 units that were short, This is a strategic plan that we look at for 5 years, 10 years in the future. And I could use, I'll give you an example. Stations or engine 79 and engine 80 is projected for where the new Dream Mall is going to go. Would I put a fire station in a unit there right now when it's just farmland? And the answer is no. So, are we projecting? Absolutely. No different than any other department, any other organization that has a strategic plan in place. And the other thing I want to also point out, and Mr. McAllister mentioned that there's no new services going into service next fiscal year. And I know that there's the possibility of a change or a memo for next year to include at least one unit. But the point I want to make is, if you take a look at this current fiscal year, we actually budgeted only 2 operational units, but we actually placed 6. By the end of this fiscal year, we would have placed 6 operational units in service. And to put that in perspective, no other fire department in the state of Florida has ever put that many fire trucks in service. And we're currently looking into it. We don't think anyone in the entire country that's even done that. So we do have the luxury and the ability to come before the board and ask for, an overage, or, ask for an amendment to place additional units in service. Right now, I'm looking at Miccosukee. I'm looking at the possibility. We've had delays with construction. So as we move in that direction in regards to allocating land, building the fire stations, those units are going to continue moving in that direction.
Thank you, Chief. I don't have any further questions.
I do, thank you. Really quickly, because I think it's important, and I understand your point about the location and the land, but you also have access to RER and to zoning, and right,
Yes.
you know when we're building stuff, right? Because we're all on the same team. In terms of the future locations, have you considered county-owned properties? Like, I know you recently lost a county property. We talked about that for some time, right? But what is the plan in terms of finding land in those difficult sites? Because we continue approving projects, we continue having a growth in population. Right. So something has to give. I mean, I understand the Miccosukee example and the Dream, Mall example, but what about the other areas, and what's the plan for those sites, specifically the ones where we're seeing a tremendous amount of development, like down south in the Redlands, like potentially West Kendall, right?
Right.
So is there something planned? Have you purchased properties there, or are you just looking to purchase properties there?
So to answer the first part of the question, what are we doing? So the department has its own real estate manager that goes out. And just from, the information that I know for this current fiscal year, we've reached out and asked about, or submitted requests for certain properties from private entities, probably over a dozen times. Either the price comes back too expensive, or we begin the process and someone else jumps on to the property. One of the things that the sheriff had mentioned is in regards to the impact fees. We're actually working along, with RER, because the last impact fee that was done, the study was in 2004, and the cost of doing business has skyrocketed. Miami-Dade County's impact fees currently, altogether, all the districts combined, is at $60 million. Every dollar is already allocated for, because a fire station right now to build without the land is about $12 to $15 million. So, the other thing in regards to, what are we doing? We had a discussion with our fire marshal's office. We have to have our sit down with our RER. One of the things that we need to start looking at is actually allocating land, and even getting some of the developers, especially where it's county-owned land and a large project is being built. And I know that there's a possibility of something that may be forthcoming off of 136 and Chrome, but that is an area that we've pre-identified as a service gap. And right now, we cannot even find reasonable land because everything is overpriced. But these are the mechanisms that we need to sit with, our elected leaders and our board to basically start allocating this land for these larger projects and not necessarily depend on impact fees.
Regarding the service times, this is the number one issue
Yes.
when we talk about annexation and incorporation. This is the number one issue, and Billy could speak to that, because he's fought that fight. But I will tell you that in my district and in others, the first thing that comes up when we hear that folks want to leave UMSA is the response time, whether for police, for fire, or for both. So I understand the conundrum, but I also want you to recognize before the board what is at stake. Because if you don't fix that, then it could end up being worse, right? In the case of police, it's a different mechanism, but for us, it could be more expensive in the long run if we don't respond to those requests, because there are adjacent municipalities that claim to have a faster response time. And Billy, I don't know if you want to, I know this is your area of expertise on who has the best response time, but I think it's important, and it's a bigger issue when we talk about mutual aid, right? But because I think in a lot of these cases, you know, some municipalities say that they have a faster response time, and then you look at the books and we're the ones that are providing the mutual aid. So damned if you do and damned if you don't.
We've talked about a range of things that complicate the issue, from real estate and to the distance naturally traveled from the most western station closest to Miccosukee. But those things aside, there is somewhere between 10 and 13 units that, if money were made available and the fire chief had the apparatus ready to go, and we trained the individuals, that could be put into service tomorrow. As was alluded to earlier, we had 2 units that materialized a couple of weeks ago that were not budgeted nor funded nor came to this board for discussion. If there is a will to drive down response times by putting units into service, it just needs to be funded. The sweep of air rescue funds from a countywide origin into the district is what is suffocating our ability to meet those demands. Rescue 67, for instance, is one. It could open tomorrow out of Station 7. Is it ideally located? No. But it certainly would help with an engine that's so often unavailable that sometimes that doesn't count as a fire station according to certain metrics. So when Surfside occurred, we didn't have a chance to pre-plan and build the city we built in a matter of the few weeks to follow to organize that response. It is customary with our fire department that when a station is not yet built, we will put it in an adjacent territory so that it can respond from there, and it will predictably have a positive effect on response times.
Have you guys considered the Westchester Government Center, like a lot of the other projects that we have where we have county facilities that we're building that could potentially also house fire?
So I know that our planning division has looked into some. It's all about location. So again, you know, we don't want to have a fire station only, you know, several hundred feet or a half mile away. But we have looked into the possibility of a partnership where if they're building some type of structure to add on a fire station, or if a parking garage is being built, you know, to build the fire station underneath. But, you know, in regards to actual locations, it has been very difficult to kind of get, you know, geographically anything that may be a county-owned project that's moving. But we know that there are, I believe, 3 that we're actually eyeing with the possibility of coming before the board and having discussions on the possibility of building a fire station either under the parking garage or before an agreement to allow 8,000 new residences, you know, pop up without having a fire station. Because again, just the impact fee study, from what I understand, is going to be at least 2 years. And 2 years is gonna delay many things.
Right, and I'll talk to Laura to see why that would take that long. But with that being said, Billy, could you provide the board with the 13 locations that you mentioned? And Chief, if you could just give us information on the 3 locations that you're talking about, right? So we can all kind of figure out like who's on first. Because I don't want to spend the board's time going through the logistics of where these locations are at. But I think it's important for us to really drill down and see how much of this capital plan can actually be effectuated this year. and what is and what is not possible. Because as I mentioned when I went over your budget, there's a lot of stuff that when I compare it to last year, there's a lot of growth, and I don't see how the timelines work. I understand that you want to have that money there and available, but there are mechanisms that would allow you to avail yourself of that money should something come up. So I want to know how much of it is just budgeting, right, and hoping for the best, and how much can really be effectuated in one calendar year.
So one calendar year is not going to cut it in regards to getting the land, getting a temporary facility, a trailer, running the,
No, I understand, but I'm saying your budget this year
Okay.
has a lot. There's a lot of questions about the vehicles and the stations. That's what I'm saying. Knowing what I know, how difficult it is for you all to stand up a fire station, when you look at the line items, it's a little confusing. So that's what I'm saying. And I think that there's an opportunity there to potentially solve a lot of our problems, because I would feel more comfortable with, some of this capital money coming out of reserves at a period when you find a property and you're going to buy it, than continuing a line item, that's just waiting there as things get more expensive, right? So I think maybe we may have a mechanism problem, and it's about finding different mechanisms. And I think that what you really need is to either communicate better with our planning and zoning, or embed a human there. Because you need to have a human that is in that department listening to where these developments are happening, because by the time you're finding out, it's too late. You need to be in the planning process of that. And we need to find a way to embed you in that planning process, so that when staff is looking at what is or is not going to be approved, you can already have figured out that that might be the perfect place for you to put a fire station.
Right. Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for fire? Commissioner Orbis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so we received a letter from the union, and it states that, and I know a lot of us have touched on this, but I guess my question is more specific, that the district requires over 36 additional units over the next 4 fiscal years, including 24 suppression units, 9 rescue units, 1 battalion chief, 3 water tenders, and the long overdue fireboat to serve the southern end of the county. So, is this the case? And maybe this is to the chief. Is this the case? And if so, what are we doing to budget for this, to prepare for this?
So, Commissioner, I caught part of the units, but can you repeat how you opened up the
Yeah,
conversation?
we received a letter from the union stating that the district requires over 36 additional units, and then I just outlined the various types of units.
So those 36 units are what I had mentioned earlier. It's the operational resource plan that we are projecting, and it's based on a lot of factors, a lot of variables: logistics, the growth of the community, the availability of resources. If everything continues in the process of the way that the county grows, yes, we're looking at the possibility of 36 units. But are 36 units needed right now, today, or next fiscal year? The answer is no. And we continue to place units in service. And again, it's not that we've been just sitting stagnant. 6 operational units by the end of this fiscal year would have gone in service. And though right now we're looking at the possibility of just 1 for next fiscal year, no different than what we did this fiscal year, we could come back and ask for additional and basically achieve what we achieved this current fiscal year. So it may be 1, but it could get increased to 3, 4, 5, based on the availability of land, the logistics, and just don't want to bore everyone with the information, but once again, fire trucks is the biggest need for departments across this country. and it's taking 3 to 4 years to get fire trucks and rescue trucks. I'm still waiting on 9 rescue trucks that I ordered in 2022 that should have been here last year, and we continue to wait. And we can't just dismiss the vendor, because what happens is we just go back in the end of the line and we're waiting 4 more years. So there's a lot of needs, and I need to have the apparatuses available, including apparatuses in reserve in the event that the trucks break down.
Okay,
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, it's your turn.
okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll begin some questions for the administration. So, several departments are parking unspent monies year after year. So what safeguards are we putting in place to stop this going forward, to stop this practice? And how, do we have a list of projected carryovers from each department?
David Clodfelter. So, departments, depending on their business unit and obviously the way that they're funded, do have contributions to reserves. And some of them are budgeted as contributions to reserve, not only for various reasons. Could be even to pay debt service for bonds that they are going out for, or financing. So there is a purpose if they're quote unquote parking money or reserving money, it may be required. So that's one example that I could give you of what a department would be doing that for.
But in a year such as this, where we're facing a deficit, can we put something in place that throws up a red flag that says any unspent money needs to go back instead of being carried over in that department, that they have to put it back into the fund, the general fund?
Well, in regards to the general fund, that's exactly what happens. Those proprietaries, we can't put a restriction on for various reasons to do that. But in the general fund, I can tell you that's exactly what happens. At the end of the year, it goes right back to the general fund, similar to the money that the constitutionals aren't not spending, they're going back to the GF. And any other departments that do not spend their total allocation, it goes right back to the general fund if they're part of the general fund.
Okay. I know I've asked you this before, but how much do we currently have in reserves?
Hold on one second, please, and I'll. So we have different reserves in the general fund, and I'm only referring to countywide taxing district and UMSA taxing district, which is referred to as the general fund. There's a contingency reserve, and this is what's proposed next year. Contingency reserve, 10 million, natural disaster reserve, 7.4, emergency contingency, an additional 5, but there is current, basically with that 5, at the end of the year, we're projecting 80 in emergency contingency, and then we're adding another 5. So let's see, 90, 97. So approximately $100 million in the general fund. There's also a tax equalization reserve of 2.2, but approximately $100 million.
And how much is legally required for us to have?
There's no legal requirement. It's what is based on the funding and how the fund is budgeted and what's required, a fiscally responsible amount of reserves. So if the general fund, and I can tell you, each fund, we have no deficits, including the general fund. And I do want to mention all of our outstanding debt. we've gone back, including the general obligation bond, and we've refinanced when optional and increased our bond rating and the savings throughout the length of the bond. So we are in good fiscal standing, including the general, in all funds.
Okay, so if that being the case, why can we not loan ourselves some funds out of the reserves, knowing that the tax collector's budget is going to return that money at the end of the year?
Well, that goes towards how we budget for these commissions and not. So I guess I can answer it this way. When we were putting the budget together for next year, first thing we did is, besides looking at how other counties budget for commissions, we called the Florida Department of Revenue, which is the tax collector's budget office, if you will. And we asked the best way to budget for this. So they made it clear that we are legally required to either create a reserve or budget an expenditure for these commissions. So by pulling something out of reserve to anticipate a return, the question would be, what would that return be from the tax collector? And because we're in a good fiscal responsible place right now in the general fund, by pulling additional something out of reserve just makes us weaker to face the following years, which, if you look at the 5-year forecast, we are already projecting deficits in the countywide and UMSA taxing districts. So I would not recommend removing something from reserves and adding expense in place with the hope or plan, with the forecast that we'd be getting something back and not knowing what that something back really is.
But you have a number, right? You know the number it's not going to go below.
Right now, we have the $20 million that has been identified that the tax collector has given us in writing that they would advance us that before the end of the year. Anything on top of that, I don't know what that number would be.
They haven't told you they're going to return the 78 million?
Absolutely not. And if they did, I'd like to see something in writing so I could budget it.
Okay. And the natural disaster reserve, how much was in that reserve last fiscal year?
This is a new reserve, 7.4.
And how do you divvy that up? What is that supposed to cover?
Basically, we created this because of FEMA, the caution, if you will, about what we've been talking with FEMA and Florida Department of Emergency Management, and what if a storm does happen or any disaster happens, the potential of the threshold of what we would have to spend before getting reimbursed may be increased. So in an abundance of caution, we created this reserve and with that amount there.
Okay. So that's a totally new fund.
Yes, it is.
Have him explain that, please, when he says the threshold, because people in the audience and residents might not understand what he's saying the threshold is. And I think sometimes we take for granted that they do. So explain that in layman's, well, yeah, you're going to have to do it. Explain it in layman's terms, the amount of money we would have to spend, but explain it to people.
So before FEMA reimburses us for any activities related to a natural or any other type of disaster, we have to basically spend $25 million on our own before anything eligible on top of 25 is eligible for reimbursement, but we come up with the first $25 million.
Do we expect that to increase, or is that the increased number?
We do expect that to increase.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. And what was the other reserve that you added 5 million to?
Emergency contingency reserve. This is our main reserve for the purposes, obviously, for emergencies. And it does require a 3/3 vote of the board to remove money from.
Okay, thank you. And then, if the commission auditor could come up for a second? Yeah, so your memo, you stated that certain expenses were underrated and certain revenues were overrated. Can you explain that? Because there's two numbers there that are pretty alarming. That some revenues were understated by approximately $50 million and certain expenses were overrated by $63 million. Can you expand on that?
Part of the request through the Appropriations Committee was to validate the communication related to the $400 million budget gap, which we know is a net effect of estimated revenues and estimated expenditures, and compare that against what was ultimately proposed in the budget. And I think that was the initial communication on the 7th of July versus the budget on the 15th of July. And one of the areas that we identified the largest gap was the carryover. The communication for the $400 million gap communicated that the carryover was going to be about $55 million, and the proposed budget reflected a carryover of $101 million.
Okay. Thank you, Inka. Appreciate it. Okay, so in parks, we appreciate I appreciate that the programming is being restored to some level and that the parking fees have been removed. 80 Barnes is one of the parks that was proposed to have a $5 parking fee, and that's in my district, so I do appreciate that because I still didn't understand what the residents were getting for the $5. So it says that programming has been restored. I'd like to get a list of the programs that were previously being eliminated and what is proposed that's being restored, because we don't know what it is. And it's still alarming that the lifeguards are being cut. Can you expand on the lifeguard? Is that in all of the parks?
So I'll provide you the list. Christina's walking up to give some answers regarding the lifeguards.
Through the chair, of course.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Christina White, PROS Director. So in regards to the lifeguards, the pools will still have lifeguards. The lifeguards that were referenced in the budget book were specific to atoll pools, which are round beach-like pools at limited locations, Larry and Penny, Matheson Hammock, and Homestead Bayfront Park. And so we're looking at hopefully being able to restore them. But right now, still they are not part of the reprogramming.
Okay, because this would be like a swim at your own risk situation, and you do still have kids that swim in these.
Understood. We are doing our best to find some funding to restore them, but they're not the traditional type pools. They're more shallow. They're beach-like. They're very different from the regular pools where we do our learn to swim and those type of activities.
Okay, so all of the large pools where we do swimming programs will have lifeguards.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the other things I wanted to touch on were, there's some savings that are possible here. I found marketing stuff that I know Commissioner Regalado had referred to earlier. There's $100,000 for Biscayne Bay marketing and $250,000 for extreme heat marketing programs, which are both from general fund. Right there, I understand the importance of both things, and of course, extreme heat is something that affects us very much here in South Florida. But I don't know what the marketing, to what extent marketing is done for extreme heat,
It
and
was literally reminding people to drink water.
drink water and stay out of the heat and wear sunscreen. Yeah,
exactly.
and we have our emergency management department that when we reach extreme heat, I believe that they deploy their methods. So right there, we can identify some savings there to restore some CBOs and maybe mom and pop funds. And then under corrections and rehabilitation, there is a $700,000 budget increase for a management software that will automate the transfer of scheduling information into the Informs timesheet. Can anyone expand on this and tell me why we need this?
Commissioner Regalado, while they bring that up for Commissioner Orbis, I feel like as a county, it's an
Good afternoon,
insult.
Chairman, Commissioner.
Excuse me, hello? Sorry, I know I was talking low, I'm sorry, give me
Oh,
one
I'm
second.
sorry.
I feel like it's an insult to have to remind people to drink water. Like, what are we saying about them, that they have to be reminded? Right, like, isn't it like an insult to our residents that they can't remember on their own? I mean, like, my children, when they're playing with their friends, I have to remind them to eat because they're children and they want to keep playing. I don't think anybody wants to keep working. Like, they want to drink water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the mayor is on board. She is eliminating it. No more.
No more water is life.
No more water reminders.
Water, like, we're good. Yeah,
But we're reminding everybody today.
we can remind them on social media for free.
Well, I know that some of the heat stuff was about the agricultural workers that were working out in the farm in the fields, and if we're doing something to help them to alleviate, the heat that they have to endure while they're working, I 100% understand that. But reminding people to drink water and stay out of, stay in the shade, I don't know that we need that much. 250,000 extreme marketing heat.
Yeah, that we don't need that, and that's two different things. That was more towards, the other thing was more towards the people who were working them, telling them they should give them water. But yeah, that was different. But Chair, I agree we could eliminate it. But we're in the bad habit as government of doing things to remind people to do things in every, like, turn off your lights, buckle your seatbelt, don't drink and drive, which is an important one.
Turn the faucet off.
Turn the
after 5
faucet off.
minutes.
Like, we actually are in the business of doing that.
But to the tune of 14 million?
Oh, I think it's incredible. I think it's incredible.
That's a lot of advertising.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. We did issue a memo to all of our departments, cutting marketing dollars. Certainly agree that combinations, and that is part of what I've been doing, is working across departments to have cross-departmental communications. We've worked hard on that, and we will definitely, and it is in our budget, to reduce our marketing expenses. So it's definitely a point with which we agree. It doesn't cost much money to do a social media post that says, don't forget to drink, but it's also insulting to the average person. And so I have said we should stop doing that because we only get negative response when we put it out.
There you go. I didn't even know that, by the way. I didn't even know that. I nailed
Yes,
it.
but again, as was
Common
said,
sense.
the importance of when you're working outside and working through industry groups, we have a training program where we actually work with employers about ways to protect their workers. That's very well attended. So that is all part of our programming.
All right, sounds good. All right, Commissioner Orbis, you do have a floor. right?
By the way, these numbers are in the budget. That's where I pulled them from. So
The total, I'm so sorry, just for clarity, yes, I understood the points that you were making, but the total number that Commissioner Regalado mentioned, which is across all the departments, we are definitely working on reducing our marketing costs. And of course, by combining our communications and customer experience department with ITD, we're also looking for savings there. And it should be more centralized through our CCED to have, make it clear. And we've been working hard with our departments that they don't message on their own, that we work together to avoid duplication and redundancy. Yeah.
thank you.
Now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners. I am Sharia Green. I am the Director of Miami-Dade Corrections and Rehabilitation Department. Here with me is my Deputy Director of Administration, Veronica Salone. So the UKG Workforce Management Pro is a software that will fully integrate MDCR's employee staffing scheduling, including work assignments, days off, vacation, into informs. It will eliminate redundancy of time and entry into informs.
So,
Could I ask a question?
yeah, I think that was the Commissioner Orbis asked that question, right?
I did.
But I think, I mean.
There's a lot of overlaps. I mean, and that's what I pointed out. There's a lot of overlaps in these things. There's like 3 different programs that are supposed to be helping with overtime. And then there's this program that's supposed to be helping people put stuff into informs. It just seems like there's a huge disconnect. And yet the overtime is still exorbitant. So I'm sure.
Yeah, and I would add, can we do this in-house? Can our ITD department that is so amazing do this for us?
Oh, that'll cost twice as much. We'll get it, they charge us like 4 times.
Which is a whole other conversation.
Coming next.
Through the chair, just a point of clarification. Our representative, Maria Elena Salazar from ITD, just wishes to clarify what that item is. It's not a new program.
Okay, Marielena Salazar from ITD, please. Take the microphone, lower the podium to your height.
Good afternoon. I was just checking if it was morning or afternoon.
All right, no, it's
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marilena Salazar, ITD Assistant Director of MDCR. The Corrections Department has had this program ongoing for keeping track of all their staffing, and they're right now going to upgrade it in the following year.
So it's not a new program, just to clarify.
It's not a new program, but it's new to corrections.
It being upgraded, as I understand. Yes, please.
May I clarify through the chair? So we have been using Telestaff as our scheduling software system to schedule days off, to schedule our posts by facility and by shift. So staff goes in and has to input their time. Not only they have to update their schedules to ensure that when they were scheduled on time, like for a day, that they've actually worked that day, adjust for days off if they weren't able to come to work, correct? They also do that in the Informs environment through the timesheet. This software will allow only the entry one time in the Telestaff system, and that would interface into the Inform system, reducing the double entry and allowing us to better manage the time and minimize mistakes and just become more efficient overall.
I do want to note that we are substantially reorganizing our IT department because of concerns about duplication and overlap and purchasing multiple different programs. I'm well aware of this concern, and of course we are looking for a new IT director.
So Mayor, if I could jump in for a second. Sorry, Commissioner, I know that Commissioner Orbis does have the floor. I need a clarification, very simple, because I'm getting mixed, and I feel like the director should know this. That's why you're the director. Is it exist today at corrections today, or does it not? Because we read it as a new program. Then it's not a new program, but it might be a new program, but this will help, but it won't help, but it definitely will help, but it's not new. It's just a renewal license. Do you use this today?
Yes.
Yes. Everybody's in agreement? Okay. All right. Commissioner Orbis.
Yeah, I just want to understand, when you say entering the time twice, what does that mean? Because I'll tell you, I've used Informs myself, right? County employee, almost 20 years. I used Informs. You can't put the time in twice. It won't let you proceed.
I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, I apologize. Our staff use a separate system called Telestaff
Okay.
to update the time and confirm that they worked the time that they were scheduled. So they input their time and they update it, reference any unscheduled leave that they had. They also ask for leave requests through Telestaff, because that's how we staff our operational posts, which is obviously 24/7 across multiple facilities. Then on top, that system, that standalone system, does not interface currently with Informs. So staff have to input their time in Telestaff so that we can manage their schedule, manage their leave, approve their leave, and then they also have to input it in Informs to approve it for payroll. So Telestaff has existed for a long time in our department. This software would interface Telestaff with Informs, and so the employee and the supervisor would only have to enter and approve it in Telestaff. And the transfer information would be
Can I interrupt you for a second? Why do you not input the time into Informs directly? Why is there a two-step?
twice. That's what I'm saying. Right now, they do it twice. They do it in Telestaff.
But excuse me, they do it twice because your scheduling program is not part of Informs.
Exactly. Telestaff is a
Yep.
separate and standalone system.
Except that Informs was created for the county, and you're telling us that Telestaff existed before the creation of Informs. So when they were creating Informs, you'd think somebody would have raised their hand and asked for some coordination, right? So now you created Informs. We all complain about Informs, and now we have another program to link up the two programs.
So if I may, right? The Telestaff system is a scheduling system. They actually have their own way of keeping track of all their staff.
We understand scheduling.
And what we have been doing is that now that we have the Inform system, what this is going to do is they are going to go ahead and upgrade the system that they have, and it will interface into Inform so they don't have the dual entry. Informs
Respectfully,
today-
if I could just add, I'm being informed that other departments also have separate scheduling systems. I hear your point, very well taken. When Informs, which I was not part of that procurement, just to understand for everyone's benefit, when I was a commissioner and Informs was purchased, I think there were a lot of things about Informs that could have been managed better. That to be said, it is not currently a scheduling system. So many departments, including the airport and others, have different scheduling system. I trust and pray that they're integrated with Informs. And if
But Madam Mayor, and I'm sorry to interrupt the Commissioner, you would think that if this is a multi-departmental problem, we would find one solution,
Correct,
right? We could
correct.
onboard everybody on the same scheduling
I-
and buy one program
Yeah.
that would speak to Informs.
Well, unfortunately, these systems predate my tenure, and they also predate Informs in this case.
Could I just have
So
a point of
completely
order? Let's-
agree with
let's-
you,
let me-
Could I have a
and
point
that
of
is
order?
why we are going to do a deep dive and make sure that this
Chairman.
sort of duplication does not
Hold on a
happen in
second.
the future.
I'll recognize you in just a second. I'm not gonna get all worked up about this because you all are doing it for me. But I guess I still have a disconnect, and a very simple one is, I think in the last meeting, I forgot what it was about. I said both things can't be true. So either when I asked, like, is it implemented today? Everyone said yes. But then you keep using the words "this would." That means that it's in the future. Like, it's not happening today. So I don't.
Yes.
So it's a new program. So the new program is that it does not exist today. The new program, the one that Commissioner Orbis is questioning in the budget, is not happening today.
It's an upgrade.
It's an upgrade. It's a new. So
So it
but
links.
you see my confusion when everyone across the board
Absolutely,
says
and
yes,
that's
yes,
why
yes.
I don't
yes, right?
run the IT department. I won't speak for you, Mr. Chair. But in any event, clearly we have redundancies, duplication, we have legacy, old systems. All of that needs to be revisited, and we're really doing a deep dive on it. And we also have Ms. Fajardo here,
But here's
Ms.
what we're gonna
Tamayo here. I thought I was going to get it right. If she can explain to you, because
in
she's
a
really the
second.
person who does our internal
do.
compliance.
In a second, Mr. Mayo, just you could stand up there, but I'm gonna just for a
Point of order.
point of order, Commissioner Gilbert. But Commissioner Gilbert, after that, Orbis has the floor, and I'm guilty of it. Let's try not to interrupt her. I'm guilty of it, but Commissioner Regalado, myself, but
Well,
point of order, and then
I just have 2 points of order now because, and just point of clarification, Madam Mayor, to be clear, you actually do run the IT department. Yes, you actually
fortunately,
do.
we have
So,
people with
it's
expertise.
not that's an authority that's delegated specifically to you. You pick folks, so that you do run it. It would be helpful though if we use this opportunity just to say what we think should happen instead of criticizing necessarily what has happened. And I'm just saying that because while I appreciate your insights on what should happen, I'm not going to sit here for much longer to hear people just complain about what is happening. I'm not here for that. So we asked for this meeting. The chair was gracious. He impaneled the committee of the whole. If we could stay solution oriented, it would be helpful because it's 2:12 and we started at 9:30. And Eileen Higgins still hasn't spoken, which is amazing.
all right,
So-
Commissioner Orbis, you have the floor.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. So, solution-based focused. Can a person do the function of telestaff at the fraction of a cost?
I didn't understand.
Can an administrator do the function of this scheduling and transferring that onto Informs at,
Automatic,
not automatic, it's a person that puts in the time for each division or each department?
it would be probably more inefficient, but absolutely that could happen, and we could defer this project to another year, but we felt that this was an efficiency project because there's staff that are tied up doing this work and would have, and do it twice, right? They do it in telestaff to update their scheduling, to reflect reality, and then they do it in Informs to get paid. And we have 2,220 or so sworn officers throughout our facilities, and it takes time. It's a lot of scheduling, a lot of updating of information.
Okay, so I think what we need to look at is how much are we paying the staff that is tied up putting in the time, and how much versus the cost of this program?
We can look at that number.
That's a suggestion. Okay, so thank you, Madam Director. And I'll close up with this. I've said it before. I see that we put 7.125 million in wage adjustment, FRS, separation, energy reserve. You know, these reserves would not be needed if we were looking at ways to move these employees to the constitutional offices like the tax collector and such. So I would keep suggesting that we look into those options for employees that need to be separated from the county, of shifting them over to the constitutional offices that are willing and able to take them. So I'll close with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bastian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to start by thanking you for facilitating this meeting. Like Commissioner Gilbert indicated, we've been here since 9:30. It's really clearly shows how important this process is, how intense it is, especially from the many calls, letters that we commissioners have received, you know, since the mayor and staff put this budget out. I also would like to thank you, Commissioner Regalado, for your deep dive. It was truly a deep dive. And your work and with you and your staff will really facilitate us as we look for more resources to fund these critical projects in our not only in our respective districts, but for our Miami-Dade County residents. And Madam Mayor, I also would like to thank you because based on the memo that you published, that you were able to find some dollars to fund some of the community CBOs, community-based organizations. As we know, we cannot talk about progress without talking about the CBOs in our districts, because for decades they've been providing the safety net for our families for decades without an increase. They are the ones who help families maintain their homeostasis, their balance, so that they can contribute. And strong families make strong communities, so the CBOs are extremely important. They educate our children, uplift our families, they drive our local economy. An example of that, and then I know my colleagues know that what I'm talking about. If someone has a mental crisis, where do they go? They go to the CBO. They have to be made whole in order to return to work. So the CBOs are a very strong economic engine for our communities. So especially in this moment of economic strain, when the cost of living is pushing families to the brink, CBOs are not just helpful, they are essential. So I'm very happy and grateful that you were able to find some fundings for that, because to underfund them now would be a big blow, not just for them, for the organization themselves, but for our neighborhoods, for our families. And I also would like to thank the OMB. You've been driving them very hard, Madam Mayor. I know it's not easy for them, so thank you for that. David and then the entire OMB team, thank you. Yanka and the OCA, thank you for helping us identify additional resources. And I have a question for you, Yanka. I know that you've been able to find several amounts in different pockets of money. And I understand that you're still evaluating and communicating with OMB to give us a total amount of what we can work with. When do you think you can give us this information?
We're currently actively working with the budget office on some of the recalculations of some revenue sources. We anticipate we'll be working with them through the week, and once we're complete and we have some sort of agreement, we'll be releasing a memo.
Do you have an initial amount for us right now?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an initial amount right now?
I'll rather us confirm first, and we'll make sure we're on the same page with OMB before we issue a memo out on the value. I could anticipate, but I'll be cautious.
All right.
Thank you so much. And then in terms of the arts and culture, Madam Mayor, thank you for restoring the partial funding for arts and culture. Because art and culture plays such an important role in our society. It fosters community bonds, drives social change, stimulates the economic growth. Again, we're talking about economic growth because when we're looking at this budget process, we can see that all the different departments, all the different services are related. That's why when I met with you, I talked about balance. We are very concerned about public safety. We want to fund public safety. We heard the sheriff today. She told us about her needs, and then we need to do our best to fund that. We heard the fire department. We need to do our best to fund that. But we also have to find a balance. So my question to you regarding the community-based organizations, I know you said that you found about 16, what is the total, 16 millions? I think half of it is for grant administration, right? So what is the shortfall? What is the total amount of the shortfall that we have for the CBOs right now?
I thank you, Commissioner, and through the chair, if I could get David to stand up and just make sure. So if you're asking specifically about the nonprofit organizations, we propose to restore 18.5 million. We do have to add back some of our grant managers who had been in the reduction previously submitted. And just to acknowledge again that the newfound funds really come from the constitutional officers in large part, as well as some savings, additional savings that we found through our efforts. And the total pot that 18.5 has to serve is 44 million. How much is it, David?
There was a total amount of CBOs that were not cultural related to the tune of about 49.
What do you mean, not culturally related?
So first of all, the arts and culture have their own dedicated resources, and I'm happy to be reminded they also are using for those grants money from the tourist development tax and the convention development tax. And we need to remember that the legislature tried to eliminate those. So that made up a little more than half of the dollars that were available for arts and culture grants. So we need to all be vigilant to not allow that to happen. We were able to prevent it. And then an additional general fund was part of the arts funding, and that was 12.5, and we're restoring 11.5 of it in our proposal. So the arts and culture budget is almost fully restored, and we don't have to take any administrative costs from that. For the other nonprofits, the non-arts and culture portion, 16.5 of that total of 40 million plus were in the competitive round, which have been receiving grants for 10 years. And then there were others that were not in the competitive pool that are also being submitted to this board. So the full list of those groups will be in your change memo. And of course, we can submit it to you before. It's been given to our commission auditor. So you can see the whole range of nonprofit organizations that we're proposing to prorate based on the available dollars.
My question again is, what is the total amount that is needed to fully fund the CBOs?
Right. So again, the total amount that was funded in this year's budget,
In excess of $40 million.
yeah, it was, I'm remembering 44 million. So if 18.5 is what we're putting back in, obviously that's less than half. And we do also have to have some grant management staff to have accountability for those dollars. So it's less than half that we're proposing would go back to those organizations. And has been said by many here, it's not recurring funding. It's based on the dollars that were excess for the constitutional officers in large part. And so we have to work together on a future funding scenario that is recurring and more stable than what we're proposing now.
Right. Well, I like the idea of having a dedicated source of funding for the CBOs. I think it's important. So I'm going to work with Commissioner Keone McGee on that, and I know you expressed some interest
Yes, a
in that
trust
too.
fund and different ways that
Yeah.
we could put monies in there.
Yeah, in terms of the arts programs, given that many arts programs support youth development, after-school engagement, and even violence prevention, how does this? And then I saw we agreed that we have to find solutions for these cuts, and I hope we do. I'm gonna make sure that we work with you on that. How do these cuts align with our public safety and education goals?
So the arts programming does include some youth programming, and so they'll all be part of that proposal to put back nearly all the funds, and they'll continue to be funded. The others that are in the nonprofit pot, we don't have, how does it fit with our strategy? I completely agree with you, as you and I know each other for 40 plus years, and we have always worked together on the community's needs. And it pains me greatly that to meet the $402 million funding shortfall, we had to look to major areas like this. That to be said, we're grateful that we do have some funding to put back in at this time. If it's the board's will to create a dedicated source of revenue that can be used for this purpose, I think that would be very beneficial to the community.
Yes, definitely. And I saw how you divided the 65 million that
65, yes.
5 million.
Yeah.
That you found, I mean, from some of the offices and also from other sources, and then I looked at the way you divided them, and I think that this should be reprioritized, and I'd like to work with your office on that. And then I agree with Commissioner Orbis about the 12 million for the county reserves. I mean, if we're talking about, the CBOs not having the funding to provide essential services, and yet we are. We have 12.5 million in a county reserve. It's a little bit difficult to swallow. So I think there is a need for some, reallocation, and I really would like to work with you on that, and that before the September 4th meeting. So because more than ever, we need to show that in this moment of crisis, that we really are concerned about our families. I mean, they are hurting, and then we have to show that we are capable to meet them, to meet this moment. Hopefully, we will work together to make sure that the CBOs, the arts and culture, are fully restored. And I'm encouraged by some of the comments that I heard from my colleagues that if we can identify the resources, we will make it happen, and I want to work with your office to make sure that we make that happen. I have a question about Cash D. What is the status of Cash D as we speak?
Thank you. I know Sonia Grace was here, our director. Are you here? And is Kathy Burgos here? Here's Sonia. Okay. So as I think was mentioned earlier, a vast majority of the dollars for our COSD or social service programming comes from grants. So to the extent that those exist, those programs are intact. We've been able to, through the combination of merging two departments, juvenile services and community action human services, we're going to be combining some back office that will alleviate some of the pressure on the general fund. And we have very small reductions at this time. We were able to put back some home health aides and a senior center based on the additional dollars, and we put that in the proposal. Come on down, Sonia. I do want to mention, as to your earlier points, Commissioner, these are our recommendations. Obviously, the board passes the budget, and you set the priorities. That to be said, reserves are very important, not only for funding shortfalls, for things, for example, that were mentioned by the sheriff, also for storms. We're looking at a federal government that has changed the way FEMA operates. If we have a major hurricane, we are not going to have adequate funds if we don't have healthy reserves. So those are just a few of the things that we plan for, but obviously the board will make the decision how much will go into each of the categories. So if you're amenable, if Sonia could come down.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
What is the status of Cash D? How much, how many grants, how much, what is the total?
So, good afternoon, Commissioner. Are you asking how many grants do we have?
What is the status of Cash D as we speak?
Okay, so currently we have approximately 30 grants. We are probably 80% grant funded. As you know, we've been monitoring our federal grants. Our largest federal grant is with Head Start. We do have federal funds for our other programs such as weatherization, as well as the older adults program, and then our LIHEAP program. So we're still monitoring, we're monitoring all of our federal funding, federal and state funding programs.
So
But
right-
if I could just,
And we're,
some of those dollars could well be eliminated in the future year.
Yeah.
LIHEAP, which is our low-income heating and energy program, has been threatened with cuts through the Reconciliation Act. So we do have funds right now, but we are not confident for the future that there will be federal dollars for that. And we're very hopeful that Head Start will stay intact. We are being monitored right now with good results. So hopefully the federal government will not cut other programs.
So as we speak, what is the total amount of grants as we speak?
the total,
Your budget, do we, does anybody, oh, okay.
apologize for that, Commissioner.
No worries.
It's 204,184. I think I have my glasses on.
And then what percentage of those 204 million would you say are at risk right now?
Ooh, hold on. I'm sorry.
Perhaps Kathy Burgos, our Chief of Community Services, could go down, well, you could sit here, Kathy, and explain what we've done to the overall budgets.
Chief, let me answer that one real quick. I'm sorry, Commissioner, we have not had any feedback, so I can't really speak to the impact. I can't give you an accurate percentage right now.
In terms of staffing, have you had to reduce your staffing in Cash D, and by how much?
With the merger? Yeah.
Through the chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Yes, we've had to reduce some staffing. And when you look at the published budget, you'll see that we've had to eliminate offices like the Offices of Neighborhood Safety, the Office of New American, and some other staff members.
How many total?
So that's approximately 45.
45. And then how are these services, how are they being delivered right now?
We've had to reduce services, honestly, because of the impact.
And I could also speak to that, Commissioner, with the merger of Community Action Human Services and Juvenile Services, Commissioner Bastian, we're able to provide a continuum of care. So the merger allows us to have these social workers work with the family as a whole. This merger also allows us to reimagine the work. So the services will continue in our community.
All right.
So, and also, just so you know, two commissioners, we are working with partner agencies to assist us with the impact. So we've met with a few, I don't want to speak to call the names now, but we're asking them to assist us with the clients if we had to close a facility or anything, a program. And they are also willing to help with the clients, keep them in their same environment, same neighborhood, but also provide the services that we're providing for them.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to have an idea because in light of the fact that a lot of our CBOs may be losing funds, I wanted to have an idea
Right.
of where we are with Cash D, because we know the critical impact that the CBOs have in our community. So thank you for the information.
Yeah, and you saw that the mayor is actually giving us the funding back. We're hoping for Edison, Little River. And so that was one of the adult daycare centers too, but yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner, if I can expand a little bit more on that, I think it's a really important point that with this merger, it allows us to have more social workers in place, allowing us to expand the services that are being provided for our families.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm Grace. So to conclude, I think that this process is very important, Mr. Chair. I heard you before. We need to identify the money to fund them. So hopefully we can. Well, I'll work with the mayor and the staff, and then we'll to identify sources to make sure that these critical services are provided. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Commissioner, and that you're absolutely right, and I appreciate those comments. So I've got Commissioner Hardiman, and then followed by Higgins, and then I'm going to jump back to Regalado for hopefully bringing this in for a landing. Commissioner Hardiman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for my opportunity to speak. So, this is a very peculiar circumstance that we're in because this is not technically a meeting, as I understand, through the county or through the chair to the county attorney's office. Can we give direction today to the administration?
You can certainly request that the administration provide information and take certain actions.
So that's a no to my answer?
It would only be binding if the board provided that direction, but the mayor often agrees and acquiesces, notwithstanding.
From time to time. But so then the question is, if I made a motion, well, can I ask my question? It's not like it was an objection to hearsay. If I, the judge would like that. If I made a motion and it was seconded on this dais, could we take any action on that motion?
There's no action to be taken at a committee of the whole today.
Okay, so I'll remain poetic and then what I have to say. I'll start with something that's actually troubling me. And I don't like to be troubled, but sometimes trouble happens. So we have this facility in, and this is all related to the budget, of course, because this provides a budgetary savings to the county, as I understand, in the amount of about $5 million, at least initially. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. You all probably don't need much, so I won't belabor you with all of it, but maybe the people at home should understand. So there's a place called the Miami Center for Mental Health and Recovery. This is a bond initiative sort of project that's been around for a very long time, probably coming up in about 20 years now. It happens to be in my district. It is obviously a resource, an asset that's important to the entirety of Miami-Dade County. And even during my time of service here, the former District 3 commissioner felt that it was important to tell another district commissioner to be the person to lead in ensuring that this facility went off the way it needed to be, although this is something I think I can handle. And I like to think that those sort of things have consequences, right? Because now it seems as if there are other commissioners that have an interest in how this facility moves forward and where it moves forward, why this is important. So we know that this thing was started. It was a way. Well, first, I just want to say this. So what it is a facility that will provide jail space. Well, it frees up jail space and provides an effective and cost-efficient alternative facility to housing the mentally ill. Currently, right now, if you are in Miami-Dade County Jail, you are housed and you're provided mental health services. But jailing and providing mental health services is a very expensive way about going to do things. And so what's happened is there are some ARPA funds, opioid settlement funds, that will cover the first 2.5 years of operations at zero cost to the county. If we, for instance, move forward with an agreement that I believe is ready to go. And during that period, the University of Miami Department of Public Health Sciences will conduct a comprehensive study of the costs and savings generated by the facility. And then after the research phase, the matter will return to the board for any consideration for the long-term budgetary obligations. Now, why it's an immediate savings of $5 million is because currently right now it costs us that money to keep this facility closed. This facility is ready to go. As I understand, the facility has a CO, and they're basically ready to start operating. And so, you know, just on some high level things, because I know we have some state guys here that love state facts. A not so attractive fact is that the state of Florida is 43rd in the nation for access to mental health care. And it's the 4th highest rate of uninsured adults with mental illness. And so today, the Miami-Dade County Jail is the largest psychiatric institution in Florida, housing as many individuals with mental illnesses as all state civil and forensic facilities combined. So we have a big mental health issue in the state of Florida, in particularly Miami-Dade County, and how we go about treating people instead of putting them in jail. Judge Leifman, who was present with us, who I said would appreciate an objection to hearsay, he has made it his life's mission to address this sort of population. And so an astounding fact is that over 75% of the jail population are people who we account to have mental illnesses in Miami-Dade County. And and the financial burden is that Miami-Dade County spends about $1.1 million per day, $414 million annually, to incarcerate nearly 3,500 inmates who have mental illnesses. And so what's interesting about that is that the recidivism data. So those mental illness inmates count for 65% of all bookings and 63% of jail days in Miami-Dade County. So that equivalates to 2,212 years of jail bed days. What this means is that you have these people who are mentally ill, they are suffering, they get incarcerated in Miami-Dade County Jail. We have a solution for them that we can put them in where it's not actual jail, but more of a services, mental health and recovery path that they can go down. And apparently we're not actually operating that facility right now because of an issue. As I understand, part of the issue is a sort of a three-way split. So one, I would love for this facility to be open. I think we're right there. Opening it will give us an immediate savings of $5 million. That's what I would like to see happen. But then as I understand, we have maybe a hold from Commissioner Regalado, and then I had maybe...
I drafted the item. I did the item. Worked on it for 2 years.
Right. So, right. And then I think, as I understand, these are things that are in the air. So I just want to make this clear. And this is why I'm talking about it today. Then I hear maybe some issues with Garcia in some sort of request. And then also, there's always the chairman. The chairman is always omnipresent in every room that exists. And so what I would like to see is this thing open for the intended purpose of the bondholders put it on for. Is there an objection to this? Like, where are we with this? Just to kind of clear the air, because I want to see this thing move forward. The judge wants to see it move forward. The facility is ready. Everyone's asking questions, and we're losing money in Miami-Dade County because of it. What's the problem that we have?
So the item, Commissioner, and I'm happy to maybe have a sunshine with you on this if it merits that. The item's on my desk, and I've been holding it because I'm truly worried with the deficit that this county has. And you're right. This is costing us, and I'm going to quote your number, $5 million a year. I wasn't prepared to discuss this today, right? But that sounds right. And it will, and there is I think 2-year plan. It says people keep saying 3, but when you look at it, it's actually 24 months to cover this building. And then after that, I think it's $10 million a year from us. So yes, today it will cover it for 24 months, but I'm worried about the future. I'm worried about years 3, 4, and 5. And even then it's still safe because we're kind of somewhat locked into, I think it's 10 million a year, and keep me honest here, because again, I'm not prepared to discuss it, up till year 5. And even then, we're still in good shape. But then it worries me what happens after year 5, right? And this is what I mean by that. And I know we can't always predict the future, and we don't know. And again, I'm happy to have a sunshine. I don't have a personal dog in the fight. It's more of just trying to be fiscally responsible for years to come. Is once this facility opens its doors, I would argue that it's naive of any of us to up here to sit and say that on year 5, if it's not working, we'll just shut it. We'll go in a different direction. Once we open the doors of this building, there's no going back. I mean, I think we could all agree on that. Come year 5, if we see that we're spending $40 million a year, and it's not what was promised to us and what was told to us by all the stakeholders, not just Judge Leifman, but all the stakeholders. If they come to us in year 5 and say, hey, we do need $30 million to continue operating this, or $40 million, what are we going to do? Because what are we going to say? Shut it down? We can't do it? Those are my concerns. I'm not saying there's not solutions to them. I'm not saying we can't discuss it. I'm really not opposed to the facility. I think it's we already spent the money on redoing it, renovating it, rebuilding it, whatever it was. And I think that was like 50 million or 40 million, $50 million. So that money has already been invested. So I think we should absolutely do something with that building. I've had many conversations with the administration. They've been looking into what what we can do legally per the bond, and what the referendum was or whatnot, or all that was. There's been conversations, at least between the administration and myself, in that same neighborhood of, okay, what is the most cost-effective way to use this building within the parameters of the bonding? Somebody brought up that an example, and I'll say it because there's nothing I'm glad that you brought this up, is somebody brought up that, I've not toured it, that our jack is deteriorating very quickly, and it's ready to be remodeled. We're going to need to do something with that facility soon. So I said, and actually someone on my team brought it up. They said, well, can we use that building? Does that qualify? Instead of having to also in just 4 or 5 years dump another $30-40 million into our jack as well. It's just about having the conversation that I don't think we've had, and that's why I've personally not put it on the agenda, trying to work out with the administration, and then Commissioner Regalado, of course, and I have not had a sunshine on it. We've not really discussed it much, and now obviously, is it in your district? I guess. Bringing it up.
It's in the district.
That's what you're saying.
And
how come it's your right? I was confused with that, but either way, that's my answer. It's not like no, I'm not putting it up. It's a maybe let's have a sunshine or just figure something out. I'm open to it.
I'm happy to have a sunshine. I was involved because it's something that had been lingering for a long time, and it was a priority for the city of Miami. So I stepped in, and we actually spent a lot of time with Judge Leifman and with the administration. I mean, it took us 2 years to get to the item that we're presenting. So it wasn't an easy task to get it all done.
In fact, I want to get to that because I did speak with someone at the city of Miami, and I want to say he said that there's like funds that could expire.
Correct.
In addition to like what we have on our
Yes.
end, like
Correct.
there's City of Miami
Correct.
funds, like use it or lose it.
Yes, correct.
And there's an expiration for that of like the end of the year or something. I don't know. Like there's details. So the answer is yes. To your point of the chair is always involved somehow. I've been holding it for those reasons. I think we should have a sunshine on it. It might be a 5-minute sunshine. It might be a 2-hour sunshine. I don't know. But just to kind of like go through the details of it, and then I think we should probably get through our budget, and then hopefully bring an item the end of September, October.
I would like to see that. I trust Commissioner Regalado. We both work in the city of Miami. We've done it in different capacities, but really it's the same beat, same heart, the way that I always see it. And I
love you
trust.
too.
I trust, that you do the things
Same.
that matter for the people. And so, I want to see the item come to this board, and we need to do it expeditiously because this is something that we must decide. I understand, look, but you should also know that it costs us money not to operate the facility. So there are costs to keeping this place closed, because these costs that corrections and jail are taking through this population of people that could be transferred to another facility, these are real costs. We may not see them because this is not something that is discussed. They don't pull it out of the detail as much as it would if it was a separate facility. But trust and believe, like it, it takes a tremendous amount of manpower, staffing, to
There's a stand-up time.
yeah.
Stand-up time. There's time where it takes them a certain amount of time to get going. So we're bleeding into that time also.
So I really do believe that it's the time to do this. I would prefer to have it on the agenda and talk about it when it's on the agenda than a sunshine meeting. However, I will acquiesce to a sunshine meeting if that's what's needed in order to get all the facts and the details out, and that would give Judge Life an opportunity to address us and things of that nature, because this facility is ready to go. I lived in this district. I still live in this district, and I've watched this facility go from what it was to what it is. Typically, a building like this would have been torn down, and they would have built something else there instead. But the good folk in Miami-Dade County during this tenure, and that includes my predecessor, they thought it was smart to rehab this facility and make it something that's worthy of the space. And it is today worthy of the space. And so in Miami, I used to always have a joke, but I was serious. And the joke was that, there are certain facilities that occur in our communities, and they look like, I don't even want to say the word, but you get it, right? And I'll give you an example.
They do not look like a place that people want to visit.
I'll give you an example. At Moore Park, for instance, the football team and the cheerleaders, etc., they didn't have a facility for them to do administrative work. And so when they would sign up for cheerleading and for football, the administrative matters, they would do it in the bathrooms. They would accept the kids to sign up. They would use the bathroom facilities in order to do it. There was never any interest in the city of Miami of any department, for instance, being at that park. Why would you want to be there? The best improved facility that they had was a trailer that they had put out there and that certain programs would actually use. That was the improvement. But when multi-millions of dollars were spent to renovate the spaces and provide a proper building there, then all of a sudden here comes the administrative department of Parks and Recreation that wants to have a facility of offices in that space. When before it was all of these small organizations that were suffering there, who eventually got space there, but it's subject to the department. I don't like things like that. And so I just said to say, when you spend a bunch of money with an intended purpose to provide an intended service, I think that we should provide that service and not allow, for instance, anyone to come in like the city of Miami would do in the Parks and Recreation and use the facilities for things that it was not intended for. And so that's why I want to kind of get to this item being heard, because time is of the essence. We will lose continued funding. And then, what do? Commissioner Gilbert said something earlier, and I'll be quiet about this issue, and I'll move on to the next one, but give you an opportunity to talk about this. It's sort of our responsibility as policymakers and government in Miami-Dade County to meet the needs of our constituencies. And this is one of those needs. And so, for instance, Mr. Chairman, if over the time it costs us more money, we got a responsibility to go find that money. And we can do it in a number of different ways: federal grants, state grants, or we can find it in our budget. Many times our budget grows because we've increased our revenues, and then also our expenses grow, but they don't have to. And I think that's what this exercise is all about that we're doing. And so I just want to make sure that we move forward in this matter expeditiously, because time is of the essence, and we will lose funding that is necessary to operate this facility. And people, I don't know if you see but you watch the news, right? People aren't doing well in Dade County Jail. They're not doing well. There's another facility that we have that I want to have a conversation with the administration about. I know we're in a tough spot now, but we have to start thinking about the future. But the TGK and the criminal courthouse, these are not facilities that are in good shape. It is terrible shape. And we have an opportunity because we have land that's right across the way from it that's on the river, right, where we have parking. So we have potentially where we can build new facilities. I'm not saying the discussion has to be whether or not you include a jail in it, but you at least could build courthouses and possibly a jail, and then tear down the old structure and then provide some sort of revenue producing asset that the private sector can participate in, and and make that area much better. But we need to have these conversations because right now we're dealing with a deteriorating asset and people who are not doing well in them, and then this beautiful waterfront land that could generate a bunch of money rather than just parking fees for the parking matters that park there. So I'll stop there. I don't know if anyone wants to contribute to that, and then I'll go on once we finish that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll recognize you guys just to have that conversation. Again, I think I would prefer having a sunshine just to kind of go through all the facts of it and feel comfortable. So when we bring an item, we're actually being productive and moving that item forward or not, right? But ideally moving an item forward. And from the beginning, when this first came, and I'll just say this, and I'll actually let them, when this item first came to my desk, it wasn't even on my radar as far as there was to me, it was just like I was getting briefed as I get briefed on any other item. And I had a conversation with Judge Leifman, who I see now that he's in the audience, and asked him a series of questions. He gave me some information. And then when I spoke with the administration and I got briefed by the administration a lot, and I had someone on the call that day, I don't know if it was Aldo on my team, but there was other people on the call that could attest to my conversation with Judge Leifman. And then the information given by the administration just didn't match up with what the judge said to me. Maybe by no fault of his own but, and it was like, what do I mean by that? An example was like, hey, you're bonding, and this was Judge Leifman, you said this to me, right? Like, you're not even paying the bonds at this point because it's been so long that's been paid off. Like, it's been almost 20, 30 years. These bonds have been paid off, which was like, oh, that's great. That's great. Like, we don't have debt. We're good. Speak with the administration. They're like, no, the bonds just started because the bonds don't kick in until construction ends. So there was just and there was a few of those, right? And I only say this to say, like, that's when the red flags went off in my brain. Again, it wasn't positive or negative. It's just like, okay, now I want to do a deep dive and start seeing what does this mean for the county. And I think you touched on something extremely important, Commissioner Hardiman, is we sometimes have to separate, like, is this something that's going to be saving us money, or is it something that we just need to do as a county and fix a problem or contribute to supporting an issue that we have, which is mental health in this example. Just like some of us have needed to get around the fact that transportation is just never going to be a positive, it's never going to be free, it's never going to be, but it's also never going to be something that makes us money. We can offset it, but it won't be profitable. So again, I think just to kind of like lay out all the facts, what's going to happen, how it's going to operate, I would like to have a sunshine. I'd make myself available. I'm not expected to travel anytime soon. And maybe we could combine a sunshine with something else to make the best out of it. But I'm definitely willing to discuss it and move something along for sure. Whether it's the same exact item, as long as everything is clarified, or whether we tweak it. But Commissioner Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if the Regalado item has been before me, but this issue it came before me when I was the chairman also. So I understand your hesitance because it's not easy. Commissioner Hardiman, I do agree that we need to open the building. The challenge is going to be that the administration and Judge Leifman really don't agree on anything.
I got them to agree.
Yeah, it's like
We have an item, we all agreed on it.
yeah, it is. And who's going to run the building? It's more contentious than you would think helping people would be. It's more contentious than you think helping people would be. At some point, who are the providers, all this other stuff. who's going to be in charge. At some point, it does have to come to a head, and it has to come to the dais. So after we have a sunshine meeting, I participate in it. But let's keep in mind, and Chairman, you said something that was very important. And this is where I kind of take issue with Judge Lightman. Judge Lightman paints a picture that it's going to be free. I don't think it is, but I don't actually need it to be. You know, if we walked out in the street and we asked, we don't have to walk out in the street. We can walk out in Government Center and see people who are suffering from mental illness right now. And right now, we primarily treat them in our jails and with our police department, our sheriff's office. That's just stupid. There's nothing, it's not going to make us money. We are going to have to, in fact, pay for it. We can do as many Medicaid reimbursements as you can. If you can do it, that's fine. We just know what we're going to have to pay and pay for the service, because these are our family members and our neighbors. And some of their actions, while they land them in jail because they committed crimes, they didn't really have the ability to control themselves. And so I think it's probably time that we stop using our jail as the primary, and our sheriff's deputies as the primary, therapists and clinicians for people who are mentally ill. And so it's going to cost us money, and that's going to be the challenge, quite frankly, because like right now it's a big challenge because we're in this budget year and we got a crunch. So we're saying, hey, we have to do something that will not make us money, will certainly lose us money, and will exacerbate our problems from a fiscal perspective. Okay, that's what we're saying. That's what I'm saying. I understand what I'm saying. I'm saying we should do it anyway. Figure it out and do it anyway. So they get together, figure out the way it loses us the least amount of money and helps the greatest amount of people. And if you can figure that out, then let's just go, because it's not going to be perfect, and everybody's not going to be happy. It's a very difficult issue to reconcile their positions.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilbert.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I have Senator Garcia, Steinberg, Bastian.
And the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I couldn't agree with you more on this issue. First of all, I appreciate Commissioner Regalato's involvement for this. For 2 years, I've been involved with this building for the last 15 years, since I was in the legislature. I know the history behind this building. I've been dealing with this for quite some time. And I want to say everything that I've done in behavioral health and in mental health and substance abuse has been because of Judge Leifman. Judge Leifman has been my sounding board, and the reason we were able to modify a lot of the laws in Tallahassee through our office was because of Judge Leifman. But I'll tell you, on this, there's been a lot of misinformation with this building. There's been misinformation from the beginning when they said that we needed this building to get rid of the consent decree that we were under. Well, we're no longer under that consent decree, so that's not necessarily true. They said that this building was going to be self-sufficient. It was going to pay for itself. That's not necessarily true. We said that we were going to have someone that was going to run the building that could do it. When we looked at their background, they really didn't have the background for the ability to run this, and they contracted with other folks. So there's been a lot of misinformation when it relates to this and this. And of course, we need to have a building. We need to have some mental health system in place, but something that will work for everyone. Something that will provide services, not just to say that we did something. And this is why, Mr. Chairman, I do agree that we should have a sunshine meeting so we can lay everything out on the table. And Commissioner Hardeman absolutely deserves to have something in his district that is going to be an example for other communities. But just to say that we're going to do something is not right. So the biggest problem that we have with this, and we're talking about the budget, is the financing for this building. Is what is this going to cost us in the out years? So we're going to lose some money now, but okay, so let's say we lose some money now, but what is it going to cost us later on? Because the more money it costs us, then that means that the less that we have for other services in our community. Not to say that the people who suffer from behavioral health or mental health services do not need them. Of course we need the services. But we need to ensure that we work with the providers that know what they're doing. Make sure that we work with providers that are in place right now that are experts in that. And maybe we can work with Jackson and other facilities that we can work together to ensure we take care of the people that need the most. And listen, at the end of the day, government should be the voice for the voices. And this is not me saying, having a stump speech or anything. I really, truly believe that. And the people with behavioral health services are the ones that need it the most. But we should not just do something to do something and pass it. So Commissioner Hardiman, you're absolutely right. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. We need to do something, but we should do something right. And I'm committed to making sure, look, we started up so you can know what we've done. We voted for a behavioral health board that both takes substance abuse. We merge a substance abuse board with the behavioral health board so we can have one board with professionals and advocates that can help us get to that point. And this is where we are now. And I promise that we'll continue to work to ensure that we have something that you and I and all of our community can be proud of, not just to say that we did something to do something. And that's what we're working on. And really the big part of it is the financing aspect of it and who's going to pay for it. And I'm okay with us paying for something because we should have some skin in the game, Commissioner Gilbert, but we should have some skin in the game when it's providing the right services for our people. And that's where we are. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I continue to work with you, and I urge you to have this sunshine meeting so we can air out all the issues around this building and make sure we have something this community can be proud of. And not only are individuals that are dealing with it and who are being adjudicated, but all of our families who are suffering with behavioral health issues, because at the end of the day, it's not just the individual who suffers, it's the family associated with that individual who suffers completely. And we need to make sure we have the services available not only for them, but for their families as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Commissioner Steinberg.
Yeah, well said. But, I'm just going to quickly touch on the fact that, yes, there's going to be a cost to doing this. But we also have to understand the cost of not doing something, right? So I think it's a great, important discussion that we're going to be having. And so all I ask, Chairman, is when you have your sunshine meeting, if there are dollars that we could potentially miss the opportunity of being able to utilize due to end of fiscal year commitments by other entities, that we have this meeting sooner rather than later.
Of course. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bastian?
Yes, basically, Senator Garcia said a lot of the things that I was going to say. Thank you, Commissioner Hardiman, for bringing this up. I did visit the complex, with the help of, I was invited by Judge Lifeman to visit it, and I was beyond impressed by the vision, the state-of-the-art, structure, all the thoughts that were put into building something that not only those who are mentally challenged would feel comfortable in, but also a place where family members who support their loved ones would come and also partake in their treatment. So I was beyond impressed, and I wasn't aware, Commissioner Hardiman, that there were such challenges that prevented the building to open. So I concur with my colleagues that we have to do something, and then I appreciate when you mentioned that maybe we should just brought it up. I said, well, wow, I didn't realize that there were issues that prevented the doors to be open. These different challenges, I think it's a good idea to have the sunshine as soon as possible so that we could put this building to use, because the fact is our jails are packed. Every day we receive, I receive calls, personally receive calls that our jails are packed, and many of those county jails are mentally challenged and they don't deserve to be where they are. So let us get together, have the sunshine meeting, wash out, whatever that needs to be washed out so that we can open the doors to this forward thinking, the state-of-the-art institution that could be a model for the nation. When I visited it, that's what I felt. That could be a model that could be replicated. We must invest in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Commissioner Hardeman.
Thank you. So I appreciate everyone's position on this, and so I just want those positions to be put on the record so we can make a decision about it, right? And no longer pontificate about what we want to do. So that's first. So thank you very much for your time on that matter. The second thing that I have to discuss is that we all know the FTX monies that we get. So that's the Miami Heat facility. And is it? Oh, that's the old next. That's the old name. Well, let me clarify. I'm sorry. The clarification is FTX had a bankruptcy issue, right? So we had to settle some things, and we received funding. So there is technically like a FTX bankruptcy fund, and it has a balance, right? And that balance is about $3.2 million. Now, in our agenda items back when we created this endeavor, we actually anticipated back in 2023 that companies could go bankrupt and not be able to meet their obligation. And so we basically created a scenario in which what we would do with any of those proceeds if we were recovering those funds. So for instance, in section 5 of an item from 2023, resolution R395-23, it says, this board establishes a county policy that the proceeds from the sale of the county's bankruptcy claim shall be used to cover shortfalls in the Peace and Prosperity Plan during certain fiscal years that are caused by differences in the annual cash flows from the county's prior naming rights agreement with FTX US and its current naming rights agreement with Kaseya US LLC in the manner described in the attached memorandum. So I bring this up because there's about $3.2 million in this fund. I had a briefing like many of you have with our mayor. At the time, I was told that there was and we approved on first, well, no, we haven't had first reading. We haven't had first reading. We had something. I can't remember what it was. But nevertheless, the mayor presented what they intended to do with those $3.2 million. And at the time, I said to myself, well, how are you able to spend that money that way? Did I miss something? If I missed something, you got me. I'll get it next time. That's how my mind generally works. I speak to myself. Turns out we did anticipate what we would do with those monies. And what the mayor was really requesting of us on the county commission was to waive basically that sort of thing so that she could use the money the way that she saw best fit. Okay? I don't remember how the money was to be spent. All I know is that $3.2 million for the Peace and Prosperity Plan, when Commissioner Gilbert talked about how you slow down crime, and the Peace and Prosperity Plan is just one of those things. And the mayor knows that. The mayor is an advocate for the Peace and Prosperity Plan. She loves it. She talks about it. And we generally fund it the way that we see fit. But I don't want to use the money in a way that is not for the Peace and Prosperity Plan. Obviously, we know that each of us get a certain amount of dollars that we can use with 501c3s that support crime reduction in our community, and also increasing economic development within our neighborhoods. Like, that's what we use the money for. And then we make allowances also to do other things with the money as well. But what I want to ensure, and I can't give direction here as I've been told, but I want my colleagues to be clear about where I'm going in the future with this, is that balance of funding that's available through that bankruptcy claim that occurred, we should continue to use it in accordance with the Peace and Prosperity Plan. That's my thing. So that's number 2. I'm almost there. This third thing, I want to tread as lightly as possible because there are some attorneys in here that would
Commissioner.
Yes.
Wait, sorry. Before you go to 3.
Yeah.
But what's it being proposed for now? I didn't see. What is
I don't recall.
It's being swept.
That's the best way to put it. Yes, it's being swept.
And by the way, I mean, I have made a list of everything, and I am going to send a memo, so we can't take action here, but we are memorializing our thoughts. So I'll go through a little recap, and we will memorialize our thoughts.
All right. So
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Point 3.
So I'm going to try to be as careful as possible in my words, but I'll say this. There's also some additional funding that's available. Well, it's allocated, some has been spent, but there's still dollars that are still available because I sponsored a non-competitive bid for services for a particular organization. And it anticipates multi-year funding. And so if, for instance, we canceled that particular contract, then we would have funding savings that we could use also towards other 501c3s that want to do, continue to do work in our communities. And so, like I said, this is something I believe I have a hold on. I've certainly sponsored the item, and these are opportunities for us to do better. And so I'm bringing this up because obviously we had a major deficit. I see that we've done some partial refunding. There's discussion about full refunding. I don't know where it's going to take us, but I know that every bit of dollar counts. And so if we can, as we like to say, trim the fat or cut the fat. Fat is good for you, though. I just want you to know that. We should have some fat. Everyone should have fat. But if you want to trim it, I understand. We have opportunities to trim the fat, if you will, so that we still can provide the services that we want to provide to our community, but at the same time doing it in the most lean way possible to ensure that our dollars go as far as possible. And so, you know, that particular contract can be trimmed to ensure that the services that we truly care about are being given. And as my bow tie friend looks at me across the way, that we continue being the great Miami-Dade County that we have without me going too far. So that is all I have to say. I think that through my sort of poetic description of these things, the mayor's office knows what I'm talking about, and we don't have to discuss it much further, but I just want the record to be clear so that my colleagues know where I intend to discuss things, at least in the very near future. Is that okay?
I have no idea what number 3 was.
That's okay.
But
that's okay.
That might have been the intention.
Listen, I would tell you this. It's a good thing. It's a good thing that you don't know what it is, right? You don't need these services in your neighborhood. So you're blessed. Continue to be blessed, and don't worry about people who have these problems. So,
all right, fair enough.
Yeah, there it goes.
All right, thank
Mr.
you.
Chair.
Direct response to Commissioner Hardiman?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I do just want to state on the record that we are not in a dispute with Judge Leifman. We've actually been working through the sponsorship of Commissioner Regalado on an item. Obviously, there are questions which we understand and respect, but just to say, wouldn't want it to be out there that we were in a fight. Okay, as far as, I'm not going to answer as to number 3, but I do think I know what Commissioner has in mind, and we will certainly talk with him about it. But I do want to mention about the $3.2 million from the bankruptcy claim. Yes, in fact, that's in our budget recommendation. It's already been swept because that was the direction we had. So if we're going to take it out of that, then that's a 3.2 that has to be found someplace else. So I just want to make that very, very clear on the record.
All right, Commissioner Higgins.
Well, good afternoon, colleagues. How is everybody? It's not still morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for convening us to have this, I think, preliminary discussion, which will facilitate, I think, a much more successful eventual budget meeting when we get together. I guess it's next Thursday. Couple things. On transit, you all know I always meddle in transit, so there's just a smidge. But I think particularly at our last commission meeting and also our transportation committee meeting, the Metro Connect issue has come up quite a lot. And I just wanted to make everybody aware that I had made a number of phone calls to see if we could get alternative proposals. And Commissioner Regalado, you've been on the Transportation Committee from the beginning of time, but I'm on, I think, on my 3rd year of saying, why don't we have a why don't we have a proposal? We have not been able to put out that RFP for these on-demand services. I think we're on year 3, and it just incenses me, and I've made that clear. Sometimes you can sole source things, and there's only one source, and that's the best way to go. But in these cases, there's multiple providers all across the country. So I've just sort of made a few phone calls and said, can anybody do this for less than $11 million? Because it can be done, and there's multiple ways of doing that. So I actually got a proposal yesterday, and I believe it was shared with the department. But there's a couple things on Metro Connect. Metro Connect is very important, and Commissioner Steinberg, you brought it up. There are parts of the county where running big buses doesn't make any financial sense, right? That costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to move, 8 or 10 people around. And on demand is their lifeline. So we launched Metro Connect, and it's been pretty successful, to try to not just be first and last mile, but also within a neighborhood to be their source of public transportation. And like many communities around the country, we launched it for free. I think, going back to the original presentation of the morning where we start to talk, that transit services for those who can afford it need to be paid for. We can't have some people paying for it, other people not. We have to find a way that this on-demand becomes, that people pay for this service. I know you're a little bit more about it needs to be first and last mile. I'm a little bit more flexible. I think within zones, like if I get on the bus right now, if I walk down here and I get on the 11 and I want to stop at Sedano's, I get to go to use public transportation, go to the grocery store. And so in areas where there's no dedicated bus service, I do think they should have the opportunity to use that, but they should not be using it as a personal Uber over and over again. And I know people that can well afford to pay for this service who've actually gotten rid of their cars and just rolling around.
I have the emails to prove it.
In Metro Connect, right. So I think there's an opportunity to look at a couple of options. One is we charge a fee for it that is, probably comparable to what folks would pay to transit. And of course, they get a free transfer if they are being dropped off. We geofence that to a transit hub, and then they get a free transfer. I also think if you're within the zone and you are using it as your public transportation option, you could pay for that if you're going to the pharmacy, if you're going to Sedano's, just like you would if you get on the bus or the Metro Rail. So, Madam Mayor, I had one organization meet with the director yesterday, with Director Miller. There she is.
Yes, we're very excited.
Yeah. No. So there's, just to let you know, there's a couple options that can basically do what we want for between $2 and $3 million. So before next Thursday, just come up with an option that I'm going to throw a number out there if you agree. $2.5 million. Figure it out. And that means some people you're going to have to pay, and we're going to have to do some things. And my guess is STS special, so we'll have to roll back into STS, which is fine. But figure it out and bring me an option, because we're not going to have, and everybody's gotten to stick up for themselves on losing Metro Connect, except our dear beloved Commissioner Bermudez, who isn't here today. But he has complained loudly and proudly about this service really affecting his area as well. So I want to stick up for him today, since I know he sticks up for me every now and then when I'm not here. So that was my meddling in transit, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, Commissioner, on the Metro Connect, when I met with the director, the two areas that I mentioned were Commissioner Rodriguez and Commissioner Bermudez, because those are the two absolute islands. If you remember, in Commissioner Gonzalez's district, we actually have a pilot. We did like some other pilot for him that was supposed to figure out if we can find a trolley kind of service inside unincorporated, and also not doing so great, right? But I think that, what I talked to staff about was at least to have the $350 that STS pays, right, as the benchmark. And one thing is the connectivity to transit, and then the zone probably for a little bit more, or figure that out. It's still going to be subsidized. It's just not free, right? That's my point.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll yield or whatever I'm supposed to do.
I just want to ask a question about Metro Connect and how it actually works. And I didn't necessarily have a dog in this fight, and I don't necessarily do at this point. But how does it work? Because, tell me how it works when someone's requesting. Where can they take it to? Where can they take it from? If someone can explain that to me, because what I thought it was, it's probably not. And I'll tell you about the experience I had after this.
Through the chair?
Yes, Madam Mayor, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, we heard so much about this during our hearings and the public, and we knew it was filling in, just as Commissioner Higgins explained. So we did ask Stacy and her team. They've done a lot of analysis, and happy with the connection that you brought, Commissioner Higgins. So, of course, she's going to explain it all to you and what we're proposing, how it works, and also what we would consider for the future.
Stacy.
Thank you. Stacy Miller, Director of DTPW. So I'm going to address
How it works first.
first your question. So there is the opportunity to engage with Metro Connect either via phone or via an app. It is not it is intersection to intersection. It is not door-to-door service. So it is not, it's Uber-like, but it is not Uber. It is not a true configuration of a TNC. So you end up going to a location. It's usually an intersection. They will pick you up there. They will drop you off at an intersection. But it is not door-to-door service, which is a little misleading.
Okay, so then my question is, because there was a situation, I was at my district office, which is not in an intersection. And, we see this car out there, and this person, the car's been out in front of my district office for an abnormal amount of time, enough to draw our attention, at least. I was with the sergeant. So we come out, and we ask the person, hey, what are you doing? And it's a Metro Connect vehicle. They had just taken a Metro Connect to my office to take pictures of my office, which I don't mind. I love my office. Take as many pictures as you want. But when I saw them, I said, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. This is an inappropriate use of this service. And I didn't know exactly, so I don't know. And, I called Joe and I told her, and I thought Sandra got the picture and she didn't. But it is an oddity to me that we don't have a control built in that would not allow that to happen. So I don't know how it is working. And I can be supportive of whatever, to keep it. I can be supportive of that. There's going to have to be a control. It's not taking you wherever you want to go. We're solving a first and last mile, problem. So it ought to solve a first and last mile problem. It's not. Yeah, I don't understand
my
that.
experience has been that it goes everywhere, and in fact, the algorithm, the app has an issue because what they do is they get to the grocery store and then they hit the app again, and the car comes back and waits for you. That's why I say that it's like a personal driver, because the way the algorithm works, you can actually use it, go to the store, hit the app again, and then the car's outside waiting for you to finish at the store to come out.
Okay, so
let me
So I phrase it that way because I figured that's how a personal driver would work.
All right, so I have the floor, people. Just for
Yeah.
three.
I was
I had to
confused.
wait till 3:15.
I was confused. I was really confused. I didn't know how they could do that.
Okay, there are all. Okay,
So, Commissioner, you didn't yield your time?
I did not yield my time. I'm taking back my space. Okay, folks. Metro Connect is a mixed blessing, as my mother would say, right? We started this to patch holes in our transit network in innovative ways in neighborhoods that were transit deserts, right? And for many of the riders of Metro Connect, it's filling those gaps, right? It is taking them to work or to school or to a bus station. But what we also see is we've got some joyriders, right? As evidenced by a number of examples of I've joyrided it myself, I think. I hope no one's recording this meeting. But so the good news is we have people that are using electric vehicles for most of the part, right? A lot of them are. They are not using private vehicles. They are willing to ride with other people. They are using different transit options, and we're providing new technology. And so we've learned from this pilot, we need to make it better. We need to make it more affordable. We need to geofence in a different way. And we can't cut the service because for the people we're making fun of up here today, there's 10 others that actually are relying upon it to get to work or to get to the grocery store. So I think you guys are going to get, matter of fact, just since I've been on the little whatever I am microphone, I've gotten like 4 offers from different companies to do it cheaper. So I'm telling them all to call you.
Thank you.
So, but I think come back with something that's around $2.5 million that leaves all these neighborhoods in there. If you can find a way to make it less expensive, we'll be even happier. Put some constraints around it that make sense, but we cannot leave all these folks in UMSA and in less densely populated areas of some of our municipalities out of that. So thank you on that one. So, Madam Mayor, just one thing that matters deeply to me as you look at the CBOs coming back, the eviction diversion programs and services, particularly for my residents in Little Havana, just if you could, get with me later and make sure those are covered. Those folks literally are thrown out with no legal representation. I forget what it was, $1 million we did last year, but are they included, do you think, in the CBO? We didn't get the full
They're in the
list.
budget.
They're in the budget.
They're in the budget, and if I may, through
Okay.
the chair.
You're recognized, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Our department director, Nathan Kogan, is looking also for additional dollars, just because we don't want to just provide legal support and outreach. We'd also like to be able to provide something for actually rent payments on a limited basis that would keep people housed. So that's something we'll bring back to the board.
Okay, thank you. I want to just circle back to that circular conversation we had about corrections and about do they do the computer programming so that they don't have to be dependent on people forever. You don't need to answer it now, but obviously there's an expense to do the system upgrade, but that should be a one-time expense. And so I realize Commissioner had to leave, but Milian Orbis had to leave a little bit early, but let's make sure, as you know, and this goes back to what Commissioner Gilbert said, we are budgeting for 5 years. Like, we don't spend money in 1 year. We've got to look at it. But if we're upgrading the system for corrections to make it more efficient and less expensive over a 3 to 5 year period by the investment in the computer system this year, we really need to understand the 5-year horizon. It may be cheaper this year to have whatever people typing hours for 2,200 corrections officers rather than spending the money on the Informs integration on that. But let's make sure we understand that the couple year horizon on that, because it may be cheaper this year to do it, but then we're paying for those people and all of the associated benefits and fully loaded personnel costs to infinity. So if you could do that. We also had a discussion earlier about reserves for emergencies. Just want to make it very clear there's counties all across the state of Florida who have made big adjustments to account for any potential hurricanes that are coming in because of the cuts to FEMA. So I think we should be very careful before we eliminate any of our kind of emergency operations reserves. And then lastly, I want to just thank our partners at the constitutional offices. I know sometimes we argue, but we still are all serving our residents, because as you've gone to look at how you can do things more efficiently as we are, it has meant that we are able to provide services to CBOs and arts institutions. And I know that we sometimes use, community-based organizations and arts institutions as kind of these things, but they're not. Like, the community-based organizations are providing services real live human beings need. They're also part of our economy. They hire people, They have workers that pay rent, that pay property taxes, that put kids through school. So they help people, and they're part of our economy. I want to just say, though, sometimes I think we think of CBOs as separately from small businesses, and I think we should stop thinking that way. I think the small business services, like we have that isolated, and I launched the program Elevate District 5, and we do not treat District 5 CBOs separately. I have all of our little bitty community-based organizations and arts organizations integrated into my technical development programs for small businesses, because fundamentally, just because they don't turn a profit doesn't mean they don't have employees, and doesn't mean they don't have to fill out paperwork and apply for grants and learn how to use artificial intelligence and figure out how to communicate online and be more efficient. So I just ask you to consider, I don't know that it's a budget thing, but they need to be part of our small business programming. And I'm going to say that for the arts institutions. I mean, certainly we got some, big kahunas out there, whatever, PAM or the Arsht. But most of them are Filmgate. They're like 3 people doing cool stuff, but they generate billions of dollars in revenue for us, and they employ thousands of people, right? Whether it's from, Gable Stage or, Zoetic Stage or this and that music. So they're an integral part of our economy, and I think we should treat our arts organizations, particularly the small ones, as small businesses, and provide them the same technical expertise that they get. And the last thing I'm going to say on CBO and arts, I'm very glad to see that we're inching towards making these things whole. But I think this has been said by all of us. We've only filled the gap for 1 year. Like, we don't have a recurring revenue stream, and even if we get it through contracting, the budget implications is our procurement is more expensive, right? So either way, it's money. I've been kind of, every time I get an email from somebody saying, please help us, don't leave us out of the budget. We don't want to leave you all out of the budget. I've been looking at their board. And there are a lot of organizations that I think, because they have been able to be so reliably funded by the county, probably don't do the kind of board development they need to do to be running robust long-term organizations. And you know how you look at these things, you think, well, there aren't any rich people on this board. And I mean, I know that sounds kind of right, but there should be, right? So you can't have all do-gooders and artists, and you've got to have the programming board and the financial fundraising board. And so I think there are some real opportunities in that we should think about for how do we do board development. And so whether that's, as you look at your Thrive 305 and all of that with Manny Sid's group, he does excellent online programming. Maybe we could have some, not super expensive, include board development for both of those organizations on there, because our budget crisis is just gonna, the constitutional officers aren't going away. We don't want you to go away. We're happy to have you, help us out. But we went from having one efficient government to having 6 governments, and it just costs more. And the voters decided for that. But I don't think they realized it was going to cost them more, and there were going to be long-term budget implications. So if you could help them with board development. And I guess oh, the auditorium. I just want to put this on the record. I'm really mad.
You sound so mad right now.
I'm really, really mad about that. That's all I'm going to say.
It delays it.
I have the floor. I'm mad about the auditorium. I feel misled that we had the money necessary to do the renovations for the auditorium. My team went and visited the auditorium last week, and basically it's demolished on the inside, and we got rid of all the arts organizations that were there, and they need to do work on the inside. But as far as I can tell, they don't have the money to put the inside back together. So that's why I'm mad. So don't come up with any other reasons why you all are mad. That's why I'm mad. I have an empty auditorium that's demolished, and I don't like it. So I realize you had ideas. By the way, I'm working on several projects in the auditorium, so I would appreciate it if you give me time. But we need to talk about this. So that's my last comment on that. Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate you all, and that's it.
I have Higgins questions. Higgins
Higgins
So I have questions for Higgins specifically.
Holy, okay.
So you brought the item that put a stop on the Guardian ad litem money a while back.
Yes.
Right? That money is in this budget.
Corrections, Guardian program, different than Guardian ad litem.
Okay, so no, but the Guardian, well, let's talk about your item and what happened to that funding, because that was one of the questions as to what's happening with that and where did the money go and what are we doing in our family.
As far as I know, until this board takes action, we should not be funding them.
Okay, so just so that we're clear on that, because there was some confusion about that. Just so that you know, I asked questions, there was some confusion.
Well, I will tell you, as you know, there was a terrible IG report around this. They have made several changes, but the board, speaking of boards, are the same. So the people that theoretically were the watchdogs and the executive directors, the same.
I agree with you, but
that money shouldn't be in the budget.
All right, sounds good. Let's, you got more questions?
Yeah,
Higgins?
I just, on charging for mover, I mean, it is her district, on charging for mover.
She didn't bring that up, did she?
She didn't, I was waiting for her to bring it up.
Well, I've brought it up many times. So there's a couple things about the mover. For the next 18 months, at minimum of 1/3 of the mover is going to be shut down at any given time. Okay, so we can't be charging for something that basically isn't running, right? The Omni Loop is going to be shut down. They're going to do some bridge buses and other things.
Don't put anything past us, but okay.
Why don't we have a sunshine on the metro?
No, but let me just say, so there's a couple things. I have done a deep dive analysis with Melvin on this, and we have done some brainstorming about how this should happen when the system is completely refurbished, which will only be about another 18 months. It takes a lot of time to install the fare gates, so we would need to give them time to do that. We also need to be very clear that about half the people on the Metromover are transferring from Metrorail, right? So you're not going to generate the full ridership in that. And I think there's a real opportunity. You get a free pass. We also have a lot of tourists. If they want to ride the Metromover for $10 a day, I'm happy to take their $10. And then for people that's the only mode of transportation they use, it doesn't go that far, you could come up with a monthly card for them that is, I'm making the number up, $100 a month. And I think there's ways to do it. It's not overnight. You'd have to, put the item together and figure out how to do the fare gates. But when we ran the numbers at $1, it doesn't, the cost of collecting it is almost as much as that. So you really just want it to integrate with the transit system, and then put a monthly pass for those that just rely upon it. But there's a lot of free transfers and there's a lot of tourists. So you have multiple ways of skinning that cat.
All right, the other thing, I know we're running out of time, but we do have to talk about the SMART plan and some of the planning that doesn't have funding.
Yes, we'll get to that now.
Yeah, we haven't.
I'm gonna let you close with that.
Yeah, okay.
And with all your other stuff. Give me Commissioner Steinberg, Gilbert. You guys could decide who. Thank you, Chair Steinberg. Yeah. Commissioner Gilbert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'll just do this quickly. If the administration, in preparation for our budget meetings, and this isn't about the SMART plan, but I've talked to Stacy, and she knows how I feel about the SMART plan, the SMART program. If we could have an outline prepared of what was the initial underlying deal and what we've ended up paying to date. Because we have a nasty habit in this county of letting the camel get their nose under the tent and then think that's going to be it, just the nose. No, the whole camel's going in. Because if we're paying operation and maintenance, O&M, I don't mind having the underlying activated. I'm cool with that. But I don't see the point if we're going to be paying O&M every year, paying it to a different organization, incorporated in parks or DPDW or whoever in the county has to run it, and run it. But right now, we're funding someone else's operation to run something. And at the same time that we were cutting our parks, we were only giving them a 5% increase. And so that's something that's going to be a problem for me. And that's not one of those boards, since Commissioner Higgins said the quiet part out loud, where some of the boards need to get some rich people on them. That's not one of the boards that suffers from an absence of powerful people on it, and I don't care. We're not going to defund parks in urban and suburban areas and fund a private park down Miami and Coral Gables. We're just not going to do that. That is disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting.
That is,
so let's just.
You're going.
It was initially sold to us that they'd be able to raise money, and I think they will be. But at some point, we have to be off the hook. I need us to be off this hook. If we're going to be on the hook forever, that's fine. Give it to us, and they can transition themselves to just being the friends of the underline, and they can just run the hey, we can bring you in to raise money for it and support the Parks Department or DPDW as they run programming for it. But if we're going to be paying for O&M, it needs to be our shop running it. I don't want to have to pay for their salaries. I don't want that. And so but it's one of those agreements that we get into where people know if they just get a little bit of agreement and they can just keep on doing the stuff. And I'm just not, I wasn't willing to do it before. This has been a point of contention before. It still remains a point of contention for me. And so I really need us to look at that and to actually have because somebody else made it, a prior commission made the agreement, and we're past the amount that we said we would pay. So that means we need to be coming back and we need to be having a conversation about what we want that relationship to look like. And so if we sit down as a board and you all disagree and you say, no, we want the relationship like this, that's fine. Let's do it like that. But then we need to do it. Because otherwise we're traveling under that old agreement. And I disagree with the way the administration has handled it. And I told them that I was going to say this so they're not surprised. Because I don't like to surprise people. And I think the underline probably knows that I'm going to say this too. So I just want us to look at it. And they can explain it to me and we can work. I'm willing to work with them. But Mr. Chairman, it's not something that we should be okay with that is operating like this. No. And so if we could look at that, I would think it would be great. On the Metro Mover thing, we can charge them the whole $225 because for all of this time that people have been paying to use, let me put it in a better context. The working families of Miami-Dade County, Liberty City, Hialeah, Overtown, Miami Gardens have been paying to use the Metro Rail. The people have been riding around on the Metro Mover for free, and now we're acting like we're doing something special by asking them to pay $1. No, pay what everyone else is paying. Pay what everyone else is paying. Figure out the fee structure, pay what, but most certainly, if you're going to make the change that you need to see happen. We already know that the subsidies, Stacey, what's the subsidy for us and public transit? What's the actual, out of $1, how much do we subsidize it?
Our fare box collection is approximately 11%.
11%. So it's 89% subsidy then, right? So don't bring something on at that level because we know we can't sustain it. We can't sustain our bus and metro rail system now at that subsidization. We just can't do it. So we're acting like we can do something that we know we can't do fiscally. So at some point, we need to talk about how, and decide. We should just decide what it needs to look like and then target a time to reasonably get there. If we decide the subsidy shouldn't be 89, that's too high, but the subsidy should be 70. Okay, let's figure out a path over 3 years to make the subsidy 70. And then lock that in, and every year, that's the subsidy. And so you lock those fees into a CPI once you level set, you lock them in. And then you don't have to revisit it every year. It's the automatic thing. Make it the automatic thing. Because otherwise, we're going to have the conversations about these adjustments, and the adjustments are always more difficult. It's easier to lower something than it is to raise something. It is easier to lower something than it is to raise something. And so we just need to be mindful of that, Mr. Chairman.
I agree.
Thank you.
Commissioner Steinberg.
All right, so as we come to a conclusion of today, and we start wrapping it up, I want to just remind, I know that a lot of really important things were mentioned, and earlier today, at some point in the morning when I first spoke, I brought up a few points, and one of them, and I don't even remember what I was going to say after, the whole day, but one thing that keeps coming back is I keep hearing about reserves. It's been a common theme that's been coming up. And I take a different view. To me, reserves are very important. We have the only safety net that we have is our reserves. And so I really caution us before we try to look at that pot of money, which in my opinion isn't even fully funded, to operate. Because if there's, God forbid, any issue that ever happens, whether it's a hurricane that we've spoken about, any sort of act of God, any sort of catastrophe, and we don't have those dollars, as it is today, I don't know that we have enough to run government effectively for more. How long, actually, David? You still here?
He's tired.
It could be worse. It could be 2 a.m., David.
No, it couldn't.
I agree with you.
No, it could not. So,
No.
David, well, how much, if we were in a situation and we needed to rely on those reserves, how long of a time frame do we have to operate government
Well,
currently?
It's
What's
not
it budgeted
just-
for?
It's not just reserves that would be part of the equation. It's our cash on hand. So,
How long do we have? Do we have 3 months?
We're talking weeks, not.
So like a couple weeks.
Well, I
3
mean,
weeks?
I would, before I'd give you an answer like that, I'd like to see how much cash we have on hand and, but.
In our reserves, cash on hand is one thing. In our reserves, how can we function? How long do we have to function as a government should there be an incident?
Not very long. If we just rely on reserves. 15 days. So 15 days.
Okay.
Scientists said.
So I want to put that into context. So we really need to be mindful when we're looking at our different pots of money, especially since, and I think one of my colleagues already touched on this, the federal government has just made changes to FEMA. What does that mean? That means if there was a hurricane or any sort of catastrophe, and we usually had a floor in which we had to, let's say X amount of dollars, and what was the original number?
The threshold was $25 million.
25. So if we hit damages of $25 million, anything above that, we would get reimbursed. The now new number that's being contemplated is what, David?
Well, we've heard different things, but we've heard numbers like 80 million, 90 million,
Okay.
possibly.
So the point is, I don't know if we were to be in that unforeseen, horrible, horrible situation, which I hope we never are. We just need to always be prepared and plan appropriately. So I just wanted to put that out there as something to think about as we talk about where we're going to find dollars. I just urge us not to touch reserves and really look towards the lenses as we build forward and help all of the different areas that we want to help, that we also think about our reserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and that's something that I've been harping on for some time together with the mayor, and she's agreed. But yes, we do. I know that, David, there is, and we haven't gotten into it today for whatever reason, but I'd ask our Appropriations Chair Regalado to consider this in the memorandum that you're going to be memorializing to the administration. Is is we might need to shift around some of the non-departmental reserves for sure, but reserves in general. Because yes, I think there was like for some of the silos that Commissioner Steinberg just alluded to, I saw something was like reserved for like $5 million, and then there was another similar silo that may fall into that same category that was maybe like 10 million or 10 point something.
We can do a reserve audit.
I'm going off my head anyway, off my memory, but not off my head, off my memory. but yeah, that's scary, right? Like if we definitely need more than that. I guess the $1 million question is, where do we get it from? Like, how do we put it in reserve? So that goes back to let's roll up our sleeves and get it done, not just say we need to do something. But I do think that's important. All right, Commissioner Regalado or Commissioner Bastian. Let's do Commissioner Bastian just because I kind of want to wrap up with you, Commissioner Regalado. No. I'm going to recognize you. What I'm saying is, Commissioner Regalado, I keep leaving you to the end so that you can like wrap it up. So Commissioner Bastian, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very productive day, I must say. To wrap it up, I'd like to say that we have our mandate, and a word, came to mind as I was listening to all of my colleagues. Is how do we prioritize? I think it's an important word that keeps popping up in my mind. The people of Miami-Dade County, the residents, are our most important assets. And then they include many of our employees. Sometimes we fail to realize that there are a lot of our employees who are also struggling. And then they rely on services, community services, to make ends meet. So prioritizing came to mind. So what is our mandate? Our mandate, and we seem to agree, right? We need to find resources, Madam Mayor and staff, to fund our constitutional offices so that they can run efficiently. We seem to agree on that. We also have a mandate to fund the CBOs, to maintain a safety net for communities, for our residents, our most important asset. We have the mandate to find resources, Alex, for our moms and pops, because small businesses are the backbone of our economy. We have the mandate to fund art and culture, Commissioner Regalado, because art is a mirror that reflects our identity, our traditions, our way of living, and that is why early December, people will be descending to Miami from all over the world.
Can't do that. You can't.
To take part in all our arts, our beautiful arts, to spend money to restaurants, our hotels will be packed. And our mandate is to make sure that we perfect this balance that is needed when we are working on the budget process, because it is a balance. We have to maintain a balance. So I think we have our work cut out for us. David, sometimes when I think about you, as I told you when we met, I feel bad because I know this is the time where you don't sleep. We all have our work cut out for us. Colleagues, Commissioner Regalado, you've been working very hard. We have our work cut out for us. But one thing that we have to realize is that, and then I know we agree, as we strive for resources for all these different departments, we must remember our most important assets. After all, they pay the taxes. There are some big items that we didn't touch. There's one in particular that is in my mind right now. No one mentioned it. So the money, we can find the money. We can find the money. We need to find the money to invest in our most vital and important assets, the residents of Miami-Dade County. Thank you.
All right, Senator Garcia for a quick little thing, and then Commissioner
The quick little
Regalado.
thing is just to make sure that Madam Mayor, as it relates to the transfer of the fire rescue, the air rescue for fire rescue, please make sure that before we transfer the funds out of the countywide budget, that we come into agreements with the 5 municipalities that benefit from the use of this fire rescue to try to compensate some of the loss of revenues that we will, or the costs that will be burned by our fire department. So I know we can't make any motions here, but I think it's important that every municipality take a piece of that burden. And I know we can't make motions and so forth, but I want to make sure we put that on the record.
Thank you. All right, so we have to talk about the fees. So my recommendation, Mr. Chair, was going to be to have a sunshine meeting on the fees. As you know, I've been working on waste management and water. We could probably do that virtually, and whoever wants to attend can attend. So I would love for your assistance with that. I think if we do it virtually, we can have a meeting before September 4th, so we can go over the fees line by line. I do have a second presentation that covers the enterprise departments and a lot of other things. I don't know if you want to schedule that before the 4th, or if you want to do it, we could do it September 10th, which is our appropriations meeting, and just start early and have it like run through appropriations, because it is enterprise. It does have some impact on general fund, but not as much as the stuff that we're dealing with. I think that what we dealt with today and what we're going to memorialize now is really what we need to work with the mayor in terms of the first reading and making sure that we're all on the same page for that first change memo. I think the changes to enterprise can be made between 1 and 2 because they don't impact the general fund as much as other things, but they're just a good practice. So that would be my recommendation, not to overburden everyone with meetings. So I took copious notes, and this is what I'm going to memorialize, and I'm now saying it in case anyone wants to add anything. I will say before I go into my memorialization, I take issue with Commissioner Gilbert's diatribe on the underline. We've gotten our municipalities to participate, but we can talk about it. We can have a sunshine. I'll take them toe to toe on another moment. We got business here. So corrections. I'll bake something. So I'm gonna work on. I did some basic math on what I've done actually for several educational institutions on lowering the water bill for corrections. So I'm gonna bring some information on that and how we can do it. I think we've all decided. I mean, do we want corrections to spend a few $1 million on uniforms? Do we want some clarification on that? I mean, we were talking about how the sheriff is keeping the brown and sewing some patches. The same thing with the paper plates and the trays, and the over budget on the food, and then obviously we went a little on the overlapping of the contracts, but I'll dig a little bit deeper into that so that we can find some cost savings there. With fire, we talked a lot about the reserves. I think it's important. One of the things we asked about was, what can they stand up now? What properties are they looking at? What are the services that they can impact right now, and really drill down on their capital plan. I think we can accelerate the impact fees. I'm happy to talk to Lourdes and see what we could do sooner than that. And then obviously proffer some solutions for the issue that we have with the helicopter. With the medical examiner, I think we can eliminate cremation for non-necessary items. I mean, do we want to keep a cremation program? Do we want to just increase those fees? I mean, I just don't know why we're in the business of that. I'll bring both options. I'll bring how much it's being used and who it's being used by and what the elimination would be, because I just don't think that's something that's in our core services. And then more information on the growth and the need for the growth in staff and in pay, because that, like I mentioned, there's been a tremendous growth in that department in particular. Parks, like we said, the mayor did resolve some of the issues that we had initially, but I will meet with them on using other departments. I'd mentioned fire and controlled burn, solid waste, reducing some of their costs. And then I'll get the specific information, I'll add it on here on the parking fees and the use, and making sure that the parking fees are used specifically for those parks, the location and maintenance and capital programs. I'll get info on the shelters and other fees and potential revenue there. And I think that to parks, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but it's important to have a hurricane plan, because when we have a lot of this debris, a lot of the parks that I've been working on in my district is because when we had hurricanes, we just dumped all the debris in the parks, and then you spend 10 years doing remediation. So we might want to consider that. I mean, unless you want to take hurricane debris. But I'll add that on there. Communications and IT, PIP, there's a lot to do there. So we didn't get very specific direction, but we'll see what we can find, some more information with the auditor. And then community services, I'll work on some ROI metrics. I think that there is something general that we can bring. Transit, Commissioner Higgins made some comments about Metro Connect, and then we'll see if we can bill on the mover faster. We'll see what we can do. I think that we can figure something out there, and I think we need to talk about the SMART plan. There's some pieces of it that just have no funding at all. So I'll make some recommendations there as to money that can be swept, specifically the ones that comes out of the half penny. So there is some stuff that's being done by FDOT that doesn't have money in this budget, but there is some things that are being funded by the half penny. Commissioner Hardiman and bankruptcy and FTX, the 3.2 million that was swept. And then we'll do a general audit of the reserves and give you some information on what can be consolidated and what's happening with all those different buckets and why.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. And then I think you said it, and I zoned out that 1 second, is you mentioned smart plan, transportation, and what's...
Right. What needs to be done right now and what can be put on hold because there is no funding. So we'll add that to the list.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, I think, while it may not seem it, perhaps, I think it was very helpful to do this today.
Thank you all for coming.
Just to clear, Mr. Chairman, I don't know what she just said. The list that we're adding is the memorializing what we want the mayor to do in the budget. We don't know exactly what specifics of what she said in the smart
Some of it
plan
is just
were.
going to be more data. So it's my notes is what we said that we were going to do, and some of it's going to be more information.
Okay, just thank you.
Yeah, it's two things. Yes.
Vice Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. So, everybody that has stuck around from the audience, appreciate you guys being here. And I look forward to seeing a lot of the same faces on September 4th. So, show us adjourned.
Our mayor has always been very open to community participation. She's very accessible, and her staff as well. And I think it's wonderful that we're having this opportunity so early in the budget